As shocking as this might be, this game made by FromSoftware is pretty hard. You're going to die, and you're going to die more than just twice. Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice may not be Dark Souls or Bloodborne, but the game is about as demanding as you would expect from one made by From, if not more. To help you out as you come to grips with its systems and mechanics in the earlier hours of your playthrough, in this feature we'll be taking a look at 15 beginners tips and tricks you should keep in mind. So without further ado, let's prepare to die. Unlearn Dark Souls. Sekiro does share some similarities with FromSoftware's signature Dark Souls series, but they exist on a surface level only. In more ways than one, this game is very different from Souls. Most immediate of these is the second-to-second loop of combat. While Souls was slower and more methodical, Sekiro is all about being aggressive, about parrying instead of dodge rolling, though you do often have to dodge. Even when you're defending, you have to do so with aggressive intent, as you look for openings in your foe's posture to strike that deadly killing blow. For Souls veterans to whom FromSoftware's signature combat style and moment-to-moment gameplay has become second nature, this is the most important piece of advice. Forget everything you've learned. Go against your instincts. This is not Dark Souls. Depend on your grapple. Very soon into the game, the wolf gets a grappling ability which allows you to, well, grapple onto certain points in the environment. It's not a free grapple, so you can't just swing up to rooftops whenever you like you're Spider-Man, but the game is pretty generous with the availability of grapple points at any given time. Don't ignore these, they're there for a reason. Sekiro expects you to employ stealth to thin out enemies before you get into outright combat, and the best way to do that is from above. Use the rooftops, pick out enemies, grapple back to rooftops, and rinse and repeat. Run away if you need to. Stealth, as we mentioned, is an important tool that you're pretty much going to have to use, but it's also very useful because it can be pretty easy to cheese as well. Even if enemies do notice you, most of the times it's pretty easy to just grapple back to rooftops and stay crouched up there for a half minute or so. Enemies will then lose sight of you, allowing you to re-enter stealth. So if you feel like you're overwhelmed by sheer numbers, running away and re-entering stealth is always a viable and smart option. Ceramic Shards. Ceramic shards may seem like very unassuming items in every way possible, but they can come in pretty handy in stealth situations. If you're faced by large numbers of enemies and need to separate them from each other, pick a good spot to hide and throw a ceramic shard at one of your intended targets. Drawing out enemies close to your own position this way can be very useful when looking to thin out enemy numbers. Invest in stealth skills. We've established by now that stealth is key in Sekiro, so obviously you're going to want to invest in stealth skills to make you the perfect silent shinobi. The suppress presence and suppress sound skills do exactly what their names suggest, making it more difficult for enemies to detect you. Suppress presence costs 2 skill points, while suppress sound will set you back 3 of them. If you find yourself relying on stealth more than out-and-out combat, stock up on enough skill points for both of these. Whirlwind Slash. Whirlwind Slash is yet another skill that's incredibly handy, and chances are it'll be one of the very first you unlock, not least of which because of how cheap it is. Once you do unlock it, make sure you exploit the hell out of it. It's not overpowered or anything, but in tight situations where you find yourself surrounded by enemies or want to deal quick blows to a target, the Whirlwind Slash can be incredibly useful, and you will be in such situations quite a lot, regardless of how stealthy you try to be. Don't ignore eavesdrop opportunities. Sekiro does a good job of explaining the eavesdropping mechanics and how it can yield important information at times, but make sure you keep it in mind as you go forward as well. Before you rush in to slaughter your enemies, while you're scoping them out, check if you can eavesdrop on any of them. From weaknesses to be exploited against certain enemies, to clues about where to head next, to even some interesting lore tidbits, eavesdropping on conversations in Sekiro is almost always rewarded with something meaningful. Time your resurrections. Resurrections are the core hook of Sekiro, it says so in the name after all. But as is the case with anything made by FromSoftware, how useful this mechanic is depends for the most part entirely on you. Sure, you can plain and simple use it to just act as an insurance for even more health should you ever die, and of course you will die. But if you time your resurrections right, they can be an incredibly handy tool. Let an enemy walk far enough away from you after they've killed you, and after you've risen again, they will have no idea that you're not dead, giving you the perfect opportunity to strike a deadly, stealthy blow. Coin purses. While you play Sekiro, you'll come across a few coin purses scattered throughout the game's world. For someone who's played these Souls games, their function will be quite familiar. Coin purses are consumables that give you certain amounts of sin, depending on what kind of purse you're using, similar to consumable souls. If you have coin purses and are short of money, pop them before you go to a merchant to buy something. Some mini-bosses can be skipped, but don't do that. Sekiro doesn't force you to fight every single mini-boss you encounter, and you encounter a lot. And given just how tough some of them are, you might be tempted to just pick an alternate route and skip them entirely, the ones that can be skipped at the very least. But while it is possible to do so, it is not advisable. Named bosses drop beads, which is what you need to upgrade your max health and posture meters. So every single boss you find, kill it. Do not skip it. Use stealth deathblow on mini-bosses. While regular enemies in Sekiro usually need just one deathblow for you to kill them, when it comes to named bosses and mini-bosses, more often than not they need more than one. However, if you can find a way to sneak up behind a named boss without alerting them, or a way to get a vantage point above them, that gives you a chance to do one of the required deathblows stealthily before the fight's even begun. The fight will then get triggered, but your enemy will essentially have one less health bar to worry about. Perfect your parry timing ASAP. Parrying is to Sekiro what dodge rolling was to Dark Souls, but simply holding down the left bumper to block enemy attacks won't be enough. You'll block the attacks, sure, but you will also damage your posture. Perfecting the riposte in Sekiro is key, as the game tells you very quickly, and you're going to want to do that as quickly as possible if you want to make any progress. So, how do you do that? Train with HANBEI the Undying. Trial and error will of course be an effective method to get the grips with the combat in Sekiro, but dying has larger consequences in the game. Instead, to learn and master the game's mini combat techniques, it's usually a good idea to go back and train with HANBEI the Undying. This is a perfect and safe place to practice and master combat moves, both basic and advanced, especially given how there's no possibility of any actual failure here, and as such, no consequences. Grind when needed. Hitting a stone wall in your bid for making progress is not that uncommon in Sekiro. There are too many bosses and mini-bosses in the game that will need absolute perfection in combat from you if you wish to progress. As such, if you find that there's a fight you simply cannot handle, you can always grind it out. Explore as much as possible. Sekiro offers plenty of opportunities for exploration. Its environments are often winding and large with plenty of areas that you can miss entirely. So don't just stick to the critical path. Explore as thoroughly as possible, because some of the most important items in the game, like gourd seeds and prosthetic shinobi tools, are entirely skippable and pretty easy to miss. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.